Hello everyone, hello class, professor. So in this series of videos, we're going to perform different FMSs, so functional movement screenings. We're going to begin with the back scratch test. This test assesses the rotator cuff, the deltoid, also the lat, so potential tightness in the upper pec as well. Now my client has been previously assessed, all the questions answered. Nonetheless, if during the test, if she has any questions, I will be also there to answer them for her. Let's get to it. Okay, so we're ready to begin the back scratch test. So again, my client is familiar with the test, so I'm going to go ahead and instruct my client to turn around. So we're going to first start with a left internal rotation and a right external rotation. So I'm going to ask my client to raise her hand, bend at the elbow, try to tap her scapula, and then we're going to ask for a right external rotation, and see if she can touch her hands. So I'll say that's good right there. Doesn't need any work. So let's do the same thing, but on the other side. So for this one, we have right internal rotation. So bend at the elbow, try to tap the scapula, and then a left external rotation. Again, see if we can tap fingers. I will also say that's good. And that's about it. That's done. So for these next two assessments, we're going to be doing a trunk flexion and a trunk extension. For the flexion, we're going to assess movement across the spine, specifically the thoracolumbar. And for the extension, we're looking for possible weakness in the abdominal wall and also our ear hips. Let's get to it. So this is a trunk flexion assessment. So my client is already sitting, knees 90 degrees. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask her to slowly go ahead and reach as far back as she can. And the purpose is to get a straight line from the shoulder joint to the hip joint. I'll say that's about good. So that's done for the trunk flexion. Okay, so we're going to perform a trunk extension. My client already has been instructed as to how. So on the count of 3, she's going to extend her trunk. What we're looking for is possible tightness at the hip or the abdominal wall. And we're going to be able to see that if the superior part of the hip comes off the floor, once the arms are fully extended. So when you're ready, go ahead. Arms fully extended. We can see that the superior part of the hip comes off. So that means it's possible tightness at the hip flexors and also at the abdominal wall. So that needs work. That's done for that. So for this next assessment, we're going to perform a hip flexion, so a bilateral and a unilateral hip flexion test. We're going to be assessing the thoracolumbar, so specifically keeping contact in the lower back and upper glutes as the knees drive up to the chest. So for optimal range, we're looking close to 130 degrees. Let's get to it. Okay, class, so we're going to begin the unilateral test first, so the unilateral hip flexion test. So my client is going to go ahead and drive the right leg and knee. She's gonna go ahead and grab. So remember, what we're looking for is contact of the lower back and the upper glute. So I would say for the right side, that's good. And let's go ahead and assess the left side, same movement. I see contact of the lower back and upper glutes, so that's also good for the left side. Now let's conduct the test bilateral, so both legs up. So knees is close to the chest, don't bounce. Again, we're looking for contact in the lower back and upper glutes. That's good. For this next assessment, we're moving into the knee flexion test. So we'll be assessing the quads. What we're looking for here is any kind of either hip abduction or any kind of knee flexion. If there's any kind of knee flexion, that may suggest that we have tightness in our rectus femoris. Let's get to it. Okay, class, so we're ready to begin the knee flexion assessment. We're going to begin with the left leg. Once again, my client is familiar with the test. So once she's ready, she's going to go ahead and begin with the left leg. So what we're looking for, remember, is possible abduction of the hip or hip flexion. I can see a little knee flexion, hip flexion here, I'm sorry. So that we suggest tightness in the rectus femoris on the left side. So let's go ahead and get up and we'll do the right side, please. So once again, remember, we're looking for hip abduction or hip flexion, suggesting any kind of rectus femoris tightness. So for the right side, a little bit better. We don't have any kind of abduction at the hip or flexion. So that's that for that test. Next assessment, we're doing the Thomas protocol assessment. So this assessment will go ahead and assess the ellipsoid or your hip flexors. It's a unilateral test, so we'll be able to see any possible tightness, whether in the right or the left hip. Let's get to it. Okay, class, so we're ready to begin the Thomas test. So my client is already in the supine position. Legs are hanging off the table. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask her to flex her knees and hip towards her chest. So go ahead and grab underneath your hips, underneath your knees. Okay, now slowly go ahead and release your left leg under control while you pull the right leg towards your chest. And what we're looking for here is full contact of the hamstring in the table. So there's a bit of a gap. So that's the assessment for the left leg. So let's go ahead and reset. And let's go ahead and assess the right side. So once again, full contact. So again, bit of a gap, so possible tightness at the hip. So for this last movement assessment, we're looking at the active straight leg raise. We are seeing for any potential tightness at the calves or the hamstring. Once again, my client has been previously informed of the test, so she is familiar with it for validity of the test. Let's get to it. Okay, class, so we'll begin the active straight leg raise. So we're gonna begin first with the left leg. Remember, we're looking for neutral ankles on both ends, and the opposite leg, the calf, remains in contact. So once you're ready, go ahead and begin, nice and slow. Okay, so this is a point where my client feels like she can no longer extend the leg. So we got contact here and neutral ankle in relationship to the hip. This is where we are. Okay, so go ahead and turn around and we'll assess the right leg. So once again, remember, we're looking for neutrality at the ankles. Once you're ready, begin. Okay, so a little bit better range on the right leg in relationship to the hip. This is where we are. Thank you.